Okay, we're going to take a look at the third of the three alien groups, and that is the group from Sirius. And this is the group, although of course there can be more than one crew, this is the group that the Dogon Tribe famously had stories about, and they called them the Fish People, um, saying that they lived under the water and that they came from Sirius. But the Dogons also knew about Sirius B, so they knew that there was a second star in that in the system, which they didn't have any telescopes that were powerful enough to show them that by looking through one of those. So anyway, the beings from Sirius. Well, this is quite a mix. A five of swords over the top of the King of Wands. Now, what I'm going to do, because these two are very much opposing, right? The King of Wands is the father figure, and the King of Wands is very much setting the example for other people to follow. Um, and they're the kind of leader or teacher that would lead by example. They're not the kind of person that's going to be like, do what I say, not what I do. They're exactly the opposite of that. And here, the main card, Five of Swords, this is about insult. So here, the soldier invades the city, the people of the city have given up, and the soldier takes all their weapons, and now he's taunting them because he knows that they can't do shit about it. So let's just see what they're looking at here and kind of where they're going, just to make more sense of this Five of Swords. So what they're looking at is the reverse moon. And where they're heading is the Wheel of Fortune. Okay, now honestly, because the moon has shown up before in these readings, and the way that I'm taking this is literally the lunar base, right? Literally a different group that is on the moon. Uh, Here, the insult toward that group, moving toward the Wheel of Fortune, which is destiny, karma. This is like the big wheel turning, the big galactic wheel, and all the stuff that goes with it. But this lends itself more toward a proxy war. And the more I see, the more I do these alien readings and see the interactions between the various groups, because there's a fucking bunch of them. Um, it it looks more like a proxy war. Like the world, the Earth is basically like Syria, and all of these other countries are basically fighting a proxy war there. So it's like the aliens are fighting each other here, probably because they don't want to do it wherever they're from. Um, and looking at that whole proxy war aspect, so far, none of the readings on the aliens have shown anyone that actually gives a shit about humans whatsoever. They have their own agendas, and if the well being of humans happens to match up with their agenda, then they would be good um, for humans. But if it doesn't, I mean, it would just be incidental. It's not like they're here to help us. Now, it's interesting because the King of Wands is the kind of person who normally would help. I mean, at least their people, but um, they're kind, right? It's a kind uh, leader teacher sort of thing. And if to them we are children, then they would be good to have around. But because this Five of Swords shows up in the middle, I don't think that's why they're here. I don't think they're here to help us. I think they're here because of some proxy war stuff. Okay, I do want to look more at this Wheel of Fortune because that might help us understand the greater picture and like what why they would need to be here. So, at least according to them. And we get a hangman. Okay. So what are we looking at here? Well, the moon and the clock are the two things. I think that there is something unique about our moon that makes it maybe as valuable as the Earth is to the beings that are around here. There's something unique about the moon, and it does kind of repeatedly show up in these readings. Any reading I do about aliens or like reptilians or whatever, the moon shows up in a way that it really does kind of show control that comes from it. And here there's the moon, and then the moon has the people controlled like puppets, and they're dancing around. But I have done readings that have shown that basically the energy from the moon actually does sort of control people. So we've got the moon and we've got a clock. So maybe there's like some sort of timed thing that happens with the moon, and like they need to be here, or they're trying to keep another group from controlling it when when the timer is up. All right. So that is properly cryptic, I guess. Now, I want to find out a little more about the interactions. Well, first, okay, we'll look at Sirius, and I just want to see how many groups of beings are there from there. Is there only one group? Is there like a couple of different races from there? So let's just see what we get. And we get an Ace of Swords. So that would say that there's actually only one group from Sirius. Now, according to the stories, at least I've heard, and these are like ancient stories from people of Earth, they're basically like water dragons. Like they look like dragons, the serpentine sort of Asian style dragon, the big long snake looking ones, and they live in the water. So let's look at the all right. I want to look at where they actually dwell, because if we can see something that leads me to believe that they are in the water, then I'll know we're on the right track. And this definitely wouldn't say anything about water. So what we get is a reversed Eight of Pentacles. So this is the workshop. The Eight of Pentacles, I mean, maybe it's the moon, because this is a workshop. Um, but this thing being reversed, it just feels like maybe it's not exactly on the ground, um, that it's like maybe above, showing this thing being reversed. Um, I'm going to pull one more on this just to see what we get. Reverse Five of Cups. Well, there is water there, but it wouldn't be a strong enough sign for me to say that yes, they live in the ocean. Um, I still might take this as sort of a moon-based thing, and the Five of Cups just on its face value. So this is the old married couple, and it shows an emotional connection that's just gone through too much shit, and it's kind of ruined. I mean, it needs space, right? And when this thing turns upside down, it generally shows there has been enough time and space between these two, and they're able to come back together. In relation to the question, that doesn't make too much sense. So again, with these two, it doesn't necessarily look like they currently, at least, live underwater. Okay, Now, I'm going to pull a card for the effect that they have on humans in general, right? Because, there's probably all sorts of things. Page of Cups. Now, we do get a fish person, but the Page of Cups, what this is basically showing, so the fish was out of the water and they were flopping around on the beach. And here the person finds the fish, they put them in the cup, and they're bringing them back to the ocean. The fish rewards them with this pearl, um, even though the page wasn't really doing it for that purpose to get a reward. But a couple things about this. Number one, it shows a mutually beneficial interaction. And number two, this is a temporary thing. And that would basically state that as soon as their job is done, they're fucking gone, right? They're not going to hang around for any real reason. But in the Page of Cups, when the person puts the fish back in the water, the fish swims away. So they're not together anymore. So if they've become great friends, there might be some sadness as the fish swims away. This is a temporary condition that happens in the page, but it does look like it would be beneficial in general for us. Okay. Now, what are they here to fight or defend against is basically the question. And the card we get is the Hierophant. And the Hierophant, I'll have to relook at the other groups of aliens to find out which one this fits with, but I think it did show up in one of those. And this is the tradition, right? So this is the way things have always been. It's like the church and the governments and stuff. So this would be the traditional power. Now, what I want to find out is this the traditional power of Earth, or is this the traditional power of the freaking galaxy, or I guess in this case it would have to be galaxy, or maybe the universe. So how localized is this power? Two of Swords. The Two of Swords talks about inner conflict. Weird. So maybe it's actually within themselves, uh, which would show kind of a rebel faction, right? Like a rebel faction of them, and they're fighting against like the traditional faction, which is fascinating. But if I was looking local or grand as far as this traditional structure, this power structure, the Two of Swords would show a local thing. In fact, the Two of Swords, it's so local that if it was a person, this would be within themselves, right? That might be some infighting. This also could be uh, what is the word I'm looking for? Like the dual nature, just the dual nature of things, light and dark, and that might be the thing that they're trying to fight against are the traditional powers of light and dark, the traditional powers of polarity. So, I mean, shit, I guess since we're here, I might as well look and see what is the opposite of that, like what is the alternative. And the Nine of Wands basically shows hope. Now, the difference, there's one more that wants to come out, and it's the Hermit. We'll look at that in a second, but I do want to highlight the difference between these two. Inner conflict, nothing gets done, right? There's no moving forward. And the Nine of Wands is really about how much hope you have that the future can be different than the past. But as long as the torch of hope is lit, then they're free to move forward. It's very possible for both of these things to exist at the same time, but I can see how hope rather than inner conflict would be a thing. Now let's look at the Hermit and see what is coming out of the card. I'm just looking at his mouth. That's like the main thing that's coming out, and we just have the teeth and the red tongue in there. Um, how would that apply to the previous card? I am not exactly sure. I can chalk that one up to unclear. But the hermit, and I am just like really focusing in on that mouth. It's like "Meh," and like his choppers, his teeth. Okay, so I'm just gonna pull a card to see, since this seems to be a temporary thing, right? I want to pull a card to look at a timeline. How long are they gonna be here? Um, from our current timeline, and we get a Knight of Wands. So the Knight of Wands, you could look at this as a soldier, but this is impulsive movement. Um, as far as if this is like something that happens soon or something that happens much later, this is something that happens really soon. So I think whatever activity it is that they're here to do, that shit is going to happen fairly quickly. And I would say, I mean, this would put it at a matter of years instead of a matter of fucking centuries or millennia. Sooner than later, for sure. And we got one more that wants to come out here, and it's a page of Pentacles. Now, the wrench is the thing, it's the tool, you know, and this might literally be about some technology, either that we develop or like they develop or whatever the fuck. Somebody develops this technology, and then suddenly they spring into action. But all of this looks like as soon as their job is complete, then they're gonna dip. Like they're probably not gonna stay. Okay, so that is what we get. But at their core, this looks like the least dickish and probably least evil. Um, although none of them look purely evil, right? But this looks like the least dickish and probably the most helpful to us of the three that I've done here. But I would love to hear what you think. If you have any other ideas on any of the cards or any other angles you would like me to look at this from, feel free to let me know. That's what we have for now, and peace.